Chinese President Xi Jinping starts his trip to Europe on Thursday, visiting Italy, Monaco and France. How will his visit boost China-EU ties, and what is in it for both sides? And in the wake of the latest world disasters report, I'll be asking why it is that so many people in desperate need of international help fall through the safety net. Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you from Beijing Ambition. Chinese President Xi Jinping will embark on his first overseas trip this year on Thursday. Prior to Monaco and France, he will start in Italy, where the government is expected to sign an MOU with Beijing to officially express support for the Belt and Road Initiative. Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said in Brussels on Monday, while attending the 9th round of the China-EU high-level strategic dialogue, that the fact that President Xi chose Europe for his first foreign visit this year reflects the importance China attaches to Europe. The signal sent by the visit, Wang Yi said, is clear and definite. No matter how the international situation changes, China always views the EU as an important strategic partner and always places China-EU relations in an important and high priority position within its foreign policy. So how much are we expecting this trip to boost China-EU ties and deepen China's bilateral ties with Italy, Monaco and France? How can both sides further their pragmatic cooperation? Joining me in the studio are Professor Hongjian, Director of the Department of European Studies at the China Institute of International Studies, and Bruno Macaes, Senior Advisor of Flint Global. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. Professor Cui, tell us a bit about the background of this whole visit. Why Europe? I understand this must have been decided at least later last year, and why these three specific countries?
Firstly, I think undoubtedly for the recent years, especially the China-Europe relations become already one of the most stable relations between China and the world. And secondly, how could we find out more importance, especially the relations between China and Europe? I think Mr. Xi's visit would try to prove that no matter which kind of different change happened for the environment, especially for the China-US, gaming, but still, Europe always an important partner with China. Because also, recently, maybe there are some argument from European side, so that okay, it's just because of the pressure from United States against China. So now Europe is becoming the instrument of China to deal with the issue with the United States. I don't think it's right. So no matter what happens, I think this visit will show that always the importance, also the internal dynamic for these relations between China and Europe.
Bruno, how do you look at the importance of Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to European countries? Do they see it in the same light? Do they see the significance of greater engagement with China at this moment?
Europe is very divided on China. It's not a secret. It's out in the open. There are countries that have become quite close to the Belt and Road, have joined and are enthusiastic in their participation, and there are countries that are very suspicious and skeptical about the initiative. For China, I think it's very important because the global economy is essentially a triangle. China, the United States and Europe are the main poles of development. And as China gets involved in the trade dispute with the United States, I think it needs to keep Europe close. So we'll see a lot of effort by President Xi Jinping, by Minister Wang Yi to reinforce that relationship with Europe.
But do European leaders see the importance of engagement with China, see the potential of further developing the China ties?
I can tell you that it's now become, and this is very new, it's now become one of the main topics of discussion. This European Council with all the prime ministers this week the main topic will be China, together with Brexit.
All right. Let's start with Italy here a little bit. I know that the comprehensive strategic partnership between China and Italy has been in existence for 15 years, and this will be the first time in the last 10 years that the Chinese president visits Italy. And since the new administration came into power since last June, Italy has actually been very eager to further its relationship with China. It's the first country, it's the first time actually in Italy's history to have a country-specific task force, a China task force to deal with relations with China. What does greater engagement with China mean for Italy, Professor Xi?
Firstly, I think it's a big demand from Italian government and also for Italian economy. As we know, this government, two ruling parties, the reason they took the position last year is, as we know, they try to give some new solution for the a little bit of poor situation, economy and the financial anything, and even the migration issue. So I think, yes, it will give some, I think, new hope for Italian government, for Italian economy, to keep maybe more driving force from outside.
Are you just talking about concrete resources such as finance or loans or projects, or are you talking about the Chinese approach to development, some Chinese solutions to the problems that Italy is faced with?
Sure. I think if we look at this forthcoming MOU between China and Italy, we can find out for China, for Italy, they try to find a common approach to deal with some challenges. For example, more trade, okay? And more maybe infrastructure investment, and more cooperation in some other. So I think, yes, Italian side tried to also learn something from China. But of course, I believe that this kind of exchange would be two-way. At the same time, China also could get some benefits from its cooperation with Italy.
What kind of benefits is China looking for?
For example, as we know that the Italian economy is the Western one in Europe, and it has very good design industry and a very good even manufacturing in the north part of Italy, and it has also a high quality agricultural product in the south part. So why don't China to get some more, for example, high quality agriculture products from Italy? Why China could learn something from design, from idea from Italy?
So you mentioned this MOU, I mentioned as well. Actually, Italy will be the first member of the G8 to officially be on board the Belt and Road Initiative. Quite a splash in the Western world, and some negative reactions from the United States. A White House official, Garrett Macaes, last week tweeted that there was no need for Italy to endorse China's infrastructure vanity project. So, but Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said there were no risks. Let's take a listen to this, what he said.
The framework of the Memorandum of Understanding on the Belt Road is purely economic and commercial. It does not remotely put into doubt our Euro-Atlantic alliance. Its content, negotiated for many months with Beijing, involving all the administrations concerned, presents no risk for our national interests and is fully in line with the strategy of the European Union, and in fact it promotes it as no other member state has done so far in its dealings with Beijing.
Quite a new perspective there. Basically, he says Italy's joining the Belt and Road is not a contradiction to the Brussels-China strategy, but rather it promotes Brussels-China strategy. Professor Cui, how should we understand that?
I agree with that. I think if you look at this cooperation between China and European countries, especially for some major economies like Germany and France, they got a lot of advantage by leading something. So I think this time it would be the opportunity for Italy to take in the leading role among the European countries in its cooperation with China. Once there are some big step for this time, including the MOU for BRI, I think it will give opportunity for Italy, said that, okay, we take almost the same advantage like Germany, like France, to do more business with China. Why not?
It's very interesting timing, though, because only last week the EU came out with 10-point action. If it is not a totally new strategy, there are some new elements in there, Bruno. How do you look at the kind of China strategy being defined at this moment, and then some member states are not wasting time to engage with China, whatever the EU position will be in the near future?
The strategy presents different possibilities for the relationship, and now there will be a debate inside the EU. Some parts of the strategy called China a partner, other parts called it a competitor, then calls it a rival. It was also interesting to see Minister Wang Yi reinforce that it is a partner, precisely because he knows there's a debate going on inside the EU right now about that. Italy needs investment, and there was a time when investment was coming from the United States, from Germany, for the United Kingdom. Not anymore, and so I think Italy sees China as perhaps a replacement for those sources of investment. That's, I think, the main attraction that Italy sees in this. But you're right, it's the first major Western economy to join the Belt and Road. It's a big moment for the Belt and Road, and evidently the United States also agrees with that.
Chinese Foreign Minister and State Councillor Wang Yi also said this in Brussels. He said, while competition between China and the EU is hard to avoid, cooperation is still the mainstream and win-win is still the goal. What is China's reaction to the soul-searching that is going on within the EU, and possibly a redefinition of its relationship? Because never before we've heard the word such as systematic rival being used by the EU in defining its relationship with China.
I think from China's perspective that the competition is as natural as possible, because once China grew up, once China rise as an economic power, undoubtedly there will be some, maybe even more competition in some fields, including the manufacturing and some industry like that. But now the key issue is how could we deal with the competition? So I think Minister Wang tried to deliver the message towards the Brussels, said that yes, we need to recognize the reality that we will have more competition. But now we need to keep the mainstream for China-Europe cooperation as cooperation. We should not take the place of competition, the cooperation become the competition. Because once the mainstream become the competition, maybe the whole mindset and the whole pattern of China-Europe relations have to be changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bruno, my last question goes to you. France has also expressed some interest, right, some maybe primitive readiness to be on board this Belt and Road Initiative if some conditions are met. How do you look at the opportunities that the Belt and Road Initiative and China's development model can mean for European countries in general? Portugal is on board, Greece is on board, some countries in Central and Eastern Europe, but a lot of Western European countries are still quite skeptical.
Right. Well, the political models continue to be very different, and I think both sides agree on this. But there are elements where you see already a certain influence of Chinese ideas in Europe, the importance of infrastructure. For a long time in Europe, we seem to think that the important thing was to change the laws or to invest in education, and infrastructure was not so important. And I think people saw how successful the investment in infrastructure has been in China, and they want to replicate this there. But we should be under no illusions that the political economic models are very different, and that's also what the document from the EU says.
All right, we have to leave it there. Many thanks to Hongjian, Director of the Department of European Studies at the China Institute of International Studies, and Bruno Macaes, Senior Advisor of Flint Global.